Hello, boys. This is Dr. Infinity, and welcome back to White Pill Media.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have returned.
Help! Somebody!
This week, I'm going to be talking about Blood Meridian. This is going to be the Midwit's take. Who will advocate for the Midwits reading this book? I will. I apologize for not having a video out for a little bit. I don't know. I have a few in the works, but nothing quite yet. I should have a more consistent flow of videos in the coming weeks, but I decided to go back to Blood Meridian because McCarthy died, I guess, a few months ago, and I had read Blood Meridian once before, a few years back. I did not like it then, but I thought I would give it another shot. People keep saying that this is the great American novel. This is the greatest American novel. Just off the bat, strongly disagree with that. Nothing is the greatest. There isn't a greatest movie. There isn't a greatest book or painting or anything that's art. It's really dumb. It might be your favorite, but nothing is the greatest. Nothing can have that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I just thought I'd give the book another try and then talk about it. So this isn't going to have like super deep analysis or reviews. This is a stupid video for stupid people. And that's about it. I'm just going to talk about some of the stuff I liked, what I thought kind of worked. I did dislike it on the second reading as well, but I could appreciate a few more things. We're just going to hop right in. If you're unfamiliar with it, maybe read it. If you're interested, it's basically, or I guess a short synopsis is this kid ends up joining with this gang of guys who are scalp hunters for Mexico, and they're tasked with taking the scalps of Apache Indians. It's very depraved and violent and bloody. There's not really goodness or happiness or smiles in this book. It doesn't exist. I would say it's more of a literary book rather than so it's like it's big on theme, it's big on ideas. It's not so much about like character and plot. It's there's a lot of violence, like and I know people say, well, that's the point, and it's like it's not very shocking after a while. It's just kind of exhausting and almost pornographic in a way. It's a little weird, but I didn't really like it. If you want like this violent, depressing, dark book that's ultimately pessimistic, maybe give it a shot. But I'm just going to go right in, spoilers, all that shit. Basically, we start with a boy who's just known as the Kid. He's a teenager, and he's not like a great person. He does some violent things, but he's not like completely like bad, like some of the people that we're going to run into, right? And he ends up meeting the judge once before. The judge is this massive dude. He gets memed a lot, but he's like this huge dude, like 6'6", something around there. Huge, fat, hairless. He's got like a childlike face. I don't know if I would say like he is educated, and he often talks like with philosophy in that, but it's also a lot of sophistry, just like using big words and like you know what I mean with sophistry, like. You're saying a bunch of smart-sounding things, but it's not actually smart. So he does that a lot, but he's a compelling character. In terms of characters for the book, like whenever the judge is there, whenever he's a part of a scene, it's interesting because the judge is there and he's going to say some stuff where it's like, maybe I don't fully get it, but it's doing something while a lot of the other characters don't have a lot of presence or interest for me. I don't have to like characters. They can be like ugly, shitty, dirty people, and I'll still like read the book as long as they're interesting. But I really wasn't interested in too much of the book except for like the judge for some of it, right? But our first scene is the judge showing up he shows up in town. This is before the kid joins the gang, and he goes into this preacher's tent and he says all this horrifying, like terrible shit about this preacher, like having sex with this young girl, raping a goat, and all that. And he gets the entire town riled up against this man. And the people drive the preacher away. And then everyone's asking the judge, how did you know about this? Like, how do you get all this information about this guy? He's like, I've never met that guy before. He just did it for fun. He just thinks it's funny, right? And the judge is like, at first, just the seemingly normal human, but very depraved and just kind of ugly. The boy ends up, he has some little adventures before he joins this failed American expedition into Mexico. That fails. And then later on, he falls in with a few people, and then he ends up joining the judge and the Glanton gang. This is another thing that people talk about Blood Meridian that kind of annoys me, is that it's based on true events. I'm doing air quotes, you can't see. And it does seem like there was a real Glanton gang that was hired by the Mexican government or the Chihuahuan government, because I guess maybe not all of Mexico is united. But they were hired to kill Apache Indians. It appears that they were real, right? But the only source we have for this is from a book called like My Confession by this man Samuel Chamberlain. I think I might read it at some point just to get his point of view. And the events in there, like, they're probably exaggerated. You know what I mean? Like, he's writing a book. It could be 100% truthful, but I think you're probably trying to sell some copies. So you're exaggerating a little bit. You're making it a little more, like, dark and interesting, right, than what might have necessarily happened. But everyone treats it like this is completely factual. Or not everyone, but a lot of people are like, based on true events, based on true events. And I'm like, a lot of those, like, quote unquote, based on true events are bullshit. Some people kind of hop on it because lack of commas and just kind of grammar and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that was a little annoying. More for me, though, is that there aren't really dialogue tags. And that's very frustrating. Just trying to, like, who's talking? Who's talking? Let me go back a few sentences. I don't know who's talking. That's annoying. I think that's kind of pretentious and just like, it's just like a fuck you to the reader, right? It's just kind of a fuck you to the reader. He also has some like whole conversations that are in Spanish that are just inserted, and these are not translated. And it's like, oh, you prima donna, you fucking prima donna, just give it to me in English, please. It's annoying. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just find that like very, very pretentious to do that. Like if you translated a book into Chinese for Chinese people, but then you just left entire conversations in English that they don't know how to read, and I'm like, wow, that's stupid. When he joins the gang, it's just they commit just these horrible acts after horrible acts after horrible acts over and over and over. And I understand that that might be the point, you know, about how ugly and vile and shitty it is. But it seems like wherever the kid and the gang goes, children go missing or dead. We also had a scene with a man running out of a tent. I think this was one of the Delawares. He's running out of the tent with a newborn in each hand, and he dashes their heads upon some rocks. And I just kind of rolled my eyes at that one because it's just like, just a lot of rape, a lot of killing, a lot of this. I understand it's like more of ideas and everything rather than character and plot. But it's still like, it's just ad nauseum, right? It's just ad nauseum, just over and over. The judge nurtures an Apache boy just to kill and scalp the child. Toadvine wants to kill the judge over the Apache boy. So there's like some flickers of humanity in like the kid for sure. In Toadvine, who's the guy with no ears. And then some of the other guys, like, I think that might be nearing the top, right? It's not a ton. It's not a ton of people that, like, actually give a shit and try and care. Some of the other stuff, let's see, the judge overpays a young Mexican boy for some puppies just to then throw the puppies into a river, and then for another member of the gang to shoot the puppies in the river. It's just like, hey, there you go, right? Oh, we get a story about how the previous gang, or the people, about before the kid was there, how the guys ran into the judge. And this is like one of my favorite parts. And it's about the judge leading the men up on this volcano, and all the guys are out of gunpowder, but he finds all like the minerals and materials to make gunpowder, and they're like on the top of this mountain, and the judge is making this devil's batter. And that was good. That was like an actual story. and that was actually enjoyable. The judge also records everything that is known to him. He wants to be like lord of everything, or suzerain. I think that's the term he used. And that's kind of cool because if he knows everything, then he can dominate everything. He can control everything. This is probably one of the most like used lines or like reposted lines, but freedom of birds is an insult to me. I'll admit it. It's a good line. I liked it. It's kind of cool. And he would rather have all birds in zoos. That's all good. When one of the men is wounded with an arrow in his leg, no one in the gang is willing to help him. They just want to like watch this guy suffer and die. And it's just this indifference. It's just this survival of the fittest. And then if you're weak, you should just be killed thing. But the boy helps the man with the arrow in his leg, right? So it's just another little kind of standout with the boy. Section of them, they go back into town with a bunch of scalps, and they're like the toasted in the town. They're welcomed like heroes. I like this at the little banquet where some of the Mexican military guys, they like toast American heroes and all that. And the Americans just name more American heroes without returning the favor and naming some Mexican heroes. You know, I was thinking as I was reading this, I would probably play an Oregon Trail game, but it's like with Blood Meridian. You know, it's like you got the kid, you got the judge, you got the ex-priest, Toadvine, Glanton. I'd probably play that as you mosey along in the old Wild West and you scalp Apaches. I'd play that game. That'd be a fine game. They take over this little ferry and they just do a bunch of horrible shit there. The judge also, they've come across this guy who has a fool in a cage. And then the judge leads the fool around by a leash. You know, I don't know if this is just... because the judge is like more and more as the book goes on. It's like the judge seems to be more than just a man. Like maybe he's God. Maybe he's the devil. Maybe it's the personification of like war, right? And I don't know if like him leading the fool around at the end, is this just how he sees mankind? Is this how he sees mankind? He's just leading them here. We also have the fool. He gets taken in by like these civilized women and they like baptize him. They put him in new clothes. They try to make him decent and like a man, a civilized man, not a barbarian like the judge, like Glanton. And they try their best. But the fool ends up almost drowning. He goes beneath the water, and then the judge hauls him out and brings him back to their camp. So we have this little baptism here. Ooh. I kind of like that. It seems like a lot of the book, or like the point, or something that I see people talk about online, is that the Wild West is wild and pointless and violent and ugly. And I don't really agree with that. I'll touch on more of that at the end when we're talking about the ending, but I don't agree with like the premise or the conclusion of the book. We're at the ferry. They're doing a bunch of before that, the kid won't kill wounded men in the desert. He's still trying to save people. He doesn't fully give in to the rest of the gang and what the gang believes in and their values, or lack of values, if you will. And he never fully gives in, right? He never fully gives in. This is just something I thought was cool, because while I don't really like the book, it's the judge usually does some like cool or interesting things, or he has something interesting to talk about. And when the Yuma attack, the judge he's like in the room. He seems like he's a pedophile and rapist, and he's probably the one that's responsible for all the missing children, or it could be someone else in the Glanton gang, but it's probably him because he's with a young girl as well, along with the fool. But he's holding a entire cannon under one arm, and he's pointing it at a bunch of the Indians to get them to back off. In the desert, they're just they've been pursued by some of the Indians, but then the judge ends up finding them. That's what the thumbnail is. I think that thumbnail's fucking great. And the judge is hunting them, right? Oh, it's the ex-priest. The ex-priest is there, right? And I really did like this with the judge hunting them. He's calling out to them. Is he the devil in this moment? Is he war? Is the old preacher correct that, this is your one chance to kill him if he's like the personification of evil? And I don't think he quite is. I've seen some people online say that they think the ex-priest may be Lucifer, and that he's lying about the judge. He leads the kid away from the judge. and tries to have the kid kill the judge, even because we know later on that the judge has not killed Toadvine Brown, because Toadvine and Brown get hanged in town for some other crime. So, and I think that was kind of interesting, because like, is the ex-priest Lucifer? Because he is literally turned away from God. He's no longer a priest, but then it has this, right, do we want the judge to be God himself? I don't know. That's a little pessimistic. That's a little ugly. So I don't know about that, but I thought that was kind of an interesting theory. And then at the end, we have the kid becoming the man, and the man still has some humanity in him. He tries to help that old Mexican woman, or she's an Indian, and he carries around a Bible that he can't read, but he still feels like it's important to have with him, right? So he's still trying to be like somewhat human, still somewhat civilized, right? And the judge meets and talks with him a few times. He wanted to break the kid's morality. He wanted him to like give himself up to the judge, and he was a holdout. He would never like fully surrender like everyone else did out in the desert. While the kid isn't like a great man, he's not like perfect, he's not ideal, he's not as broken and ugly as everyone else, right? And he's trying to still save himself and hold himself back. At the very end, the judge shows up again. We have the dancing bear and all that. The man who represents some goodness, or it's weakness, or it's just humanity, and the kid kills and rapes it. I've seen some people say that this is the judge just like devouring the kid's soul at the very end, and like the kid just kind of gives in. So like our ending is incredibly pessimistic. It's incredibly pessimistic. It's war, and I guess evil not just survives, it triumphs. It triumphs over good. It triumphs over man. And I really, really don't agree with that. I don't really agree with that. I think some people say that this book is meant to be truthful and it doesn't romanticize the West. I think that's bullshit. I think that's a really edgy take. I think there are humans that are just evil. I think there are people that are just evil. I don't think that every person is like a mixture, like 50-50, good and bad. It's like, no, Jeffrey Epstein exists. He just really wanted to rape women and young girls, and there you go. It's not really morally gray. That's another kind of meme word, morally gray. I do think there is evil out there, but I also believe in good, because I know plenty of like good people. Yeah, there are people with like moral failings that aren't perfect, but they're not the judge and the Glanton gang. I really don't agree with that, and I don't believe that that's what the Wild West was really like. Yeah, definitely violence, definitely ugly, but there was goodness and dignity and family and love and all of that. And just saying that this is the true version of the Wild West, not that romantic crap. It's like you just went on like the complete opposite end of the spectrum. You know what I mean? Like this isn't more truthful or better because it's violent, because it's violent and dark, therefore it's more truthful. That's stupid. I really don't agree with that. Oh, you thought things were decent in the past? Nothing was ever good back then. Nothing was ever happy. Humans are default evil. And I'm like, bullshit. That's bullshit. The ending where it's like the person with the most humanity is raped and killed by the judge at the end, hope loses to evil. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I think there's a lot of evil people in power now. There's probably been a lot of evil people in power for a lot of humanity, but I don't like that. I don't agree. But it's this movie, I think it's called like Green Inferno, where it's just people in like the Amazon forest. And it's just like about like rape and like cannibalism and murder, and that's like 2 hours or something. Or like just kind of like gore films where it's just like you do a bunch of horrible shit to people, and then you say, wow, that's the nature of humanity. And I'm like, wow, it's fucking not. It's really not. I thought there's definitely some interesting stuff with the judge. I really like the story with the gunpowder and kind of that. There's some good. Oh, another good bit was I think it's Glanton, because Glanton has the dog. He's like, I can make any dog like me with just a piece of jerky. Go get me a piece of jerky. So the guy gets him a piece of jerky. You know, he's like, oh, I don't need to hit a dog to make it obey me. But then, like, the next scene, whenever we see Glanton and the dog is limping. So he obviously had to beat it. Something, you know, that I was thinking about when I was reading this book is Lonesome Dove, because it's this epic. It's this epic by Larry McMurtry about two former Texas Rangers. They do this cattle drive up to Montana. They're going to be the first, like, ranchers out there. And that is also, quote unquote, based on true events. I think a lot of those events are true. That's a great book. It's got goodness and kindness, and like it's a mixture, you know, because there's also like very dark, ugly moments and scenes in that book and bad people, but there's also this light. There's a balance. Like, that's human nature. I think there's an overall balance, right? It's not just happy little forest elves or whatever. There's definitely really dark parts in there. Lonesome Dove is definitely a recommendation. Interesting thing that I found out when I was, you know, taking notes for this. Blood Meridian and Lonesome Dove were published in the same year, 1985. That's really interesting. I really recommend Lonesome Dove. It's great. It's a long book, but it honestly, I think I would be able to like read that much faster than Blood Meridian, because I actually like Lonesome Dove. It has characters and plot and things of interest there. It's not like trying to be literary where it's about ideas and themes, and it's for college professors and suits and whatever. I don't give a shit. I just want a decent story of characters, you know, that I care about. There's no one to really care about in here. I guess the kid to an extent, but we don't really get to be in the kid's head that often, or like get his emotions or his thoughts. He's a bit of a plot device for most of it, where he's just the kid. He observes, he takes it in, but he doesn't become with the Glanton gang. He doesn't like follow the judge's philosophy. If you do check out Lonesome Dove, strongly don't recommend the other books in the series. There are 4 other books. One of them's like a prequel written after the fact, and 2 others are like, no, sorry, there are 2 prequels and then 1 sequel. They're all fucking terrible. Some of the worst books I've ever read. So really avoid those. Just read Lonesome Dove. That's the good one. That's the good one. That's the good one. The mini-series for it is also pretty decent, but I think the book is better, and you should read the book first. So these are just a Midwit's take on Blood Meridian. Some of my thoughts, some of the things I noticed. Ultimately, I don't agree with the ending. I don't agree with the themes or the ideas present. I don't think it's all darkness and death and violence and everything's worthless and pointless. That's just not true. So that's it. I'm probably going to have, because I finished King of the Hill recently, thank God, that took a while. Probably going to do a little overview of that, of just some of my thoughts in terms of like other books. I have a video on like Truman Capote and why I don't really like him, you know, so I'll have that. And I'm gonna have like 2 more books that I review next week. One is going to be about Wrangel, the White Russian general, and then also one about the Spartans in Thermopylae, which I did not really like, but I'm still going to talk about it. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Dr. Infinity out.
Here's 40 shillings on the drum to those who volunteer to come to list and fight the foe today, over the hills and far away, o'er the hills and o'er the main, through Flanders, Portugal and Spain. King George commands and we obey, over